So, hi, little technical issue there. So I don't know where we got cut off, but
Okay,
um,
so I just pulled up this picture,
yeah.
and it's exactly as you say. It's showing the downtown area with the mighty Genesee, which I know the mighty Genesee sometimes does look a little bit greenish and a little bit brownish.
It's not
I
always
used
the
to see
cleanest.
it
Yeah.
ev I used to see it every day, and this photo has definitely been doctored to make everything look much, much, much more industrial, much dirtier, much more
Yeah.
polluted. Like, I was I heard about this article. I didn't look it up and I hadn't seen the picture, which was why I wanted to see it now.
Mhm.
In a lot of respects, they're not wrong.
Right.
Like, we are indeed the city that likes to build parks entirely out of concrete.
Yeah, but those
Like,
aren't like. I mean, that's a choice. I mean,
it's a choice. It's a definite choice, but I feel like it's definitely not the ugliest town. There are things I don't like about it. You've probably heard me go on about those huge new expensive lofts they're putting all over the city.
yeah,
But that's mainly because I don't think they fit in with the architecture, and I don't know who can afford to live there. It is still Rochester.
yeah. People too, though, which is weird. Yeah, it's weird. I got my back up a little bit with this because I mean, also like people have to remember like this is that like quickly generated internet content. And I mean, the basis of this is literally like on Reddit, somebody's like, "What's the ugliest town you've ever visited?" And then like 20 people were
Right.
like, "I visited this town and it was ugly." So it's not this is not like somebody drove to all the towns and took nominations for ugly towns. It was sort of like some rando on Reddit was like, I think Rochester's sort of ugly," and that it
Yeah.
made the list. So I guess we don't need to get too worked up, but I don't know. I think Rochester is kind of. I feel like it's no uglier than other places. I mean, it's got some really pretty parts. I mean, it's got,
Yeah.
and I'm in my head I sort of include the suburbs, which isn't really fair for the purposes of this, I guess, because we're talking about the city of Rochester. But I think the city of Rochester has really pretty parts, including like the view in that picture. If
I
you were just
know.
there,
Right. It
you'd be like, "Oh, this is kind of pretty." You
Yeah,
wouldn't see like the
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I've gotta say, not every city has a waterfall
yeah,
downtown, and waterfalls are kind of objectively pretty.
yeah.
Like, people just like them. Yeah, absolutely, and we definitely, in the city, have nice parks, quite a few of them, really. We have historical cemetery,
Yep.
um, which is very pretty and very park-like.
Yeah, I feel
We
like I
have
mean,
some okay
like Mount
architecture, the houses are cute.
there's a lot of nice architecture. I mean, like, yeah, a lot of them have been subdivided and rented out to college kids inside, but on the outside, I mean, they're
Mhm.
gorgeous. You know,
Those,
um,
yeah, like the mansions and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, I get my back up a little bit about stuff like that, and definitely you might remember not too long ago, friend of the show, friend of mine, friend of yours, Michael Polston was in town, and when we were driving from the airport to my house, he was like, "This looks so much like so many cities I've been to." And I was like, "Absolutely." And then he's
yeah,
like, "Oh, over there, that looks like Pittsburgh. Oh, yeah, that looks like Louisville." And so, again, to say, like, Rochester is the most hideous is kind of disingenuous because I've been to a lot of cities,
yeah,
and I've seen an awful lot of stuff where I'm like, "Yeah, looks just like home."
yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I don't think it's way prettier or way uglier than just like a lot of other cities. I feel like it's probably
Yeah.
like the. In fact, I think if you looked for the average kind of like look of a city, not that
Yep.
Rochester has no distinct. Rochester has some really distinctive features, but just
Sure.
overall, like it's sort of if you if you put it on like average between like really beautiful places and really ugly places, it's
Mhm.
kind of fine. It's sort of fine.
Yep.
And some of the stuff that's nice, like I mean, like the classic old mansions and the a lot of the architecture, and like um yes, do you want to, do you put your cemeteries in the brochure? But I mean, Mount Hope Cemetery alone is sort of beautiful and distinctive and unique and cool. I mean, it's
Oh,
gorgeous.
very. And they definitely do put it in the what to do in Rochester because I've looked up
Die.
what to do in Rochester. Yeah. No, but there are all kinds of things like go and look at the river, go to the cemetery,
Lick a
you go to the
squirrel. Yeah.
conservatory, yeah, stuff like that. Definitely like a squirrel, but all kinds of things like go to the Eastman House, go to the Strong Museum.
Hmm.
So yeah, I would say, I mean, you can definitely look at Rochester and be like, oh, what a terrible town. But I think you can look at a lot of cities and go like, that looks awful. Especially if you go and put a weird greenish brownish filter on it.
Yeah, they either found or created like the ugliest picture I've ever seen of Rochester. Again,
Yeah.
of a view that like maybe this doesn't speak well of us, but like that's almost where you take people when they come to town, like that bridge to overlook the thing. So
Yeah, to
either
look at the falls.
that view is truly like either they're showing like the best view in town and that's just how it is, and the best view in town is the thing that gets us on the is the picture they use for the ugliest city in America picture. Or again, I think that's sort of a bad picture.
It's a bad picture, and I'm scrolling through this. I don't want to be on my phone too long. They did not use any pretty pictures of any towns.
No, and why would you? I mean, if you're making a list of the ugliest cities,
Right.
you wouldn't find like a beautiful tree, you know.
Right, exactly. A gorgeous historic parkway, or you have
Hmm.
something like on Oxford Street where the magnolias all bloom for, well, they're probably done now. In fact, I'm sure they are. They bloom for a day and a half now because we go straight from the coldest winter into the hottest summer.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, I mean, that article, I'll try to take it with a grain of salt. It hurt my feelings worse when David Byrne of the Talking Heads and his notable solo career, um, he used to keep an online blog type thing, and he was in Rochester to play a show. And he was just kind of saying mean things about Rochester and how it was, just not a well planned city and it was just a bad place to be.
Oh, it's definitely not a well planned city. I mean, that's 100%. I'll give him
No,
that.
no, it's not.
It's a
Again,
terribly planned city, so I mean that's
all I
fair.
have to do is point to those condos. I mean, who is paying $2,500 a month for a view of the expressway?
But they are. They
I
absolutely
don't
are.
know
So I don't know.
why.
I don't know why either, but I mean that's I don't blame that on the people building the condos. I blame that on the people who are like, I would like to live in downtown Rochester for $2,500 a month.
I don't know. I'm
I mean,
thinking of one,
I'll
it's
build a condo.
right. No, you wouldn't.
If people would pay
Would
me
you?
that much money to live in it, I'd build a condo. I don't really want to be a landlord because that's very fraught. You know, that's
Oh,
a
it
very
sure
fraught
is.
role at this time and place in our
Sure
history. But
is. Absolutely.
I
Yeah,
don't
I
want to
don't
be
know. I I
anybody's
wouldn't
villain.
build one of those. Exactly, because landlords are the bad people now.
Yeah,
I guess they always were.
they always were. I don't think they ever
I
were
mean,
not.
yeah, I guess, I've been lucky, I guess, because I had a college landlord and then I had an apartment for about a year after college.
Hmm.
And one of the years I decided to buy a house was because I couldn't stand the landlord.
Okay,
He was the kind of guy who would show up at like 10:30 p.m. and start knocking on my door.
that's a really bad landlord.
It was really weird. There was a new tenant moving in, and I remember this really clearly. I was cooking chili one night, and I'm just like in my robe and pajamas because it's 10:30. I had a weird schedule because I worked third shift.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden I had music on and I was just hanging out doing some cooking. Bang, 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 bang on the door. So I go to open the door and he just walks right in and he's telling me a new tenant's moving in the next day. He goes over to the stove where I have the pot simmering and he lifts the lid,
Oh
smells
my
the
god.
food, and goes, "Oh, I love curry." And I'm just like, "Get out
Yeah.
now."
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I
that's
mean, I know he technically owned the place, but like I
no, but
was
that's not how that
21 years
works. Like,
old and it was 10:30 and I was just trying to cook some dinner.
yeah, but that's a bad landlord and also like someone who's breaking the law because you don't get to
Yeah,
just barge your way into you don't if you rent a place that doesn't mean you can barge in at any time you want and eat their food.
I know. Yeah, he did not eat the food. He stopped short of
Sounds like he was
actually
angling for it.
I know. I mean,
Yeah.
it It was very disconcerting, and I was really taken aback. I didn't care for that at all.
I mean, and that's another, speaking of nice things about Rochester, that's sort of a nice thing about Rochester, at least up until sort of the present. Because the real estate market around here has gotten a little wild. And
It's
maybe it's just
absurd.
maybe it's catching up. But I mean, up until very recently, and kind of
Very.
still now, but maybe not for much longer. Um, you know, it's so much. Now, granted, there are all sorts of barriers to home ownership that aren't just money. And a lot of them are money. I mean, sometimes you can put together rent for a month, but you can't necessarily put together the stuff you need to,
Mm-hmm.
buy a home and whatever. But in general,
Right.
home ownership around here is um, much cheaper and more competitive than almost any place else I've ever. That's not like some. I mean, to be in sort of a metropolitan area where there are actually jobs and not like you know
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in a depressed area in the middle of nowhere. Um,
Right.
Even still, I think you can even compare. I think you could even compare with like some depressed areas in the middle of nowhere that I've known.
I think
Um,
so.
I mean, the last couple of years, and again, maybe it's just adjusting. Maybe it's just sort of catching up to other places. I don't know how much longer that's going to be true. So I guess if you're looking to buy a house, maybe do it now. But
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Though I know in some areas there has been an absurd skyrocketing of
oh,
home prices.
oh yeah, it's all over.
Because
Yeah, it's all over Rochester. Absolutely.
is it all over? Because I do that weird thing where I want to see how much my neighbors' houses are selling for.
Hmm.
So when I'm searching on real estate sites, just because I'm always curious about that, I mainly am looking in my own zip code just because I want to see, like, oh, I walked by that house the other day. What did it sell for? Um, but I'm definitely seeing things selling for, houses kind of like mine, selling for literally $100,000 more than I paid for mine 4 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, no question.
And
Yeah. I don't know about
it's a
every
huge
single
jump because,
town. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, well, it'll just be kind of strange because I'll look at the ad and I'll see that this place sold for, yeah, as I've said, $100,000 more than I paid not long ago.
Mm,
And I'll compare the features and I'll be like, my house is actually, it's got a few more features that are desirable to a buyer.
yeah.
And it's bizarre. Our friend Sarah Smart, she and I will send links back and forth sometimes because she also, until very recently, shared a zip code with me. And we will send each other links to like the absurd prices people are paying for stuff just in our neighborhood.
Yeah. I mean, they're still, I think I would say they're still not absurd compared to probably like a national average. I think we're still cheap.
Are
Um,
we, do you think?
oh yeah, a city like this, another city like this. Yeah, you couldn't, I mean, yes. Yes, I will say 100%
Okay.
we definitely are cheap, but it's changing fast. Um, and I don't know if that's I don't know if that's good or bad. I feel like it's been a nice thing that you could afford a home around here. Right now there's sort of a weird thing where the prices are going up because um it's like it almost seems like the prices are going up because it's affordable to live around here. So there's more competition for the houses because I mean stuff goes up. And like I said, I don't know if every town is the same, but at least sort of in the city and like my side, over on my side of the city, um, stuff goes up. I mean, if you want to almost anything, almost no matter what your house looks like or what condition it's in, um,
Mm-hmm.
at this time and really over the past year at least, you could. This is real estate talk with Heather and Ross, by the way. You could.
I know.
Thank you for listening. You could.
Hello and
You know
welcome.
you can put a house up on Friday, and if you want to be done
Yes.
on Monday, you can.
Yep. Yeah.
That's
And you'll have several offers, many of them cash offers, no inspection,
yeah,
which is wild.
yeah. So I mean, I don't know, like that's it's good if you're selling your house. Um,
Yeah.
it's a little sad in the sense that you know it, this area for a very long time has been it's always been weirdly it's always cheaper overall to buy your home than rent, but it's always been like way cheaper to buy your home. And again, there are barriers to home ownership that aren't,
Yes.
some of it's having that initial amount of money or getting the loan or whatever. There are all sorts of barriers,
Mm-hmm.
but in general, um, like renting, unless you're just here for a very short time, was never like a good money bet if you could avoid it here, because it's always been so much cheaper to buy a house relatively.
Right.
Um, and I feel like that's probably still true, but it's less true and it's getting less true all the time. So again, I don't know what that means. Or maybe it's a bubble. Maybe we're just sort of catching up with, the country. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, I
because
don't know. I
it's always been the case that like anybody I know who comes from out of town, like wherever they're from, they'll see like a for sale sign and they're like, what? That house is only $200,000. I mean, it's like, you know, a lot of people I know who make good money, who make much better money than you make in Rochester for like almost any job, are like, oh yeah, I can barely cover my mortgage, every month. So I hope we don't get to that point, I guess.
right. And I guess that's what I worry about because I feel like Rochester is one of those towns where housing was cheap, food is cheap, even kind
Hmm.
of like gourmet exclusive food is comparatively cheap.
Yeah.
But then people who live here get paid less.
Right.
So cost of living is lower, but people's wages and salaries are lower. But that's all right because in a bigger city, somebody makes way more money, but they also spend way more money just on
Right.
their rent or their mortgage and their food. And now I feel like we're getting to, I'll give the example of Boston. Okay, I remember last time I went to Boston, I and my other friend from Rochester, we were so annoyed because the food was so expensive and not nearly as good as what we get in Rochester.
Yeah.
So we took our Rochester salaries to Boston and we were like, what am I even getting? At home, I could get this for half the price, but way more delicious. What's going on?
Yeah.
But now I feel like houses are going up and prices are going up, but I don't get the sense that anybody is getting the massive kinds of raises in pay that would kind of help even that out to be like, well, I'm making more, everything costs more, but it's okay, that kind of
Right.
thing. And
Yeah.
it
I
seems
mean,
like with the exorbitant prices on houses, it almost seems kind of gouging to me.
well, and again, just remember, like, it's still cheap here. I mean, the houses are still cheap. Part of the problem is you can't get them, which is why it gets into these bidding wars with the houses. Like, we're in a weird thing. I think this is what's going on. This is my hypothesis, my slightly informed hypothesis, is that um, at some point people realized the cost of living here was really good, and then people decided to come here because the cost of living is really good, or stay here as opposed to leaving, or buy a
Mhm.
house after college instead of leaving, or whatever. Maybe they didn't necessarily come from outside, but they decided to stick around or whatever. um you know so all these people realize that, like, oh, the cost of living in Rochester is really reasonable, let's go live there. And then it built all the competition for real estate and housing and people wanting to buy houses because they're like, oh, it's so cheap to buy a house there. So 40 people are trying to buy this one house. So the price goes up, and that's what happens with every house. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know if it's something that's going to regulate itself over time, like it's going to settle out. I don't think there's going to be a big drop in the real estate prices, but I hope they sort of level out, because it's been a little over the top. Um,
Yeah, it really has.
but I think it's that's why I say I don't know if it's self-regulating, because I don't know if it'll wind up being
I don't
self-regulating in the
know.
sense that people will be like, oh, it's no longer that cheap to live there, so I guess we won't fight so hard over these houses. I don't know.
Right. I don't know because then there is also the thing with people wanting to buy the houses as investment properties.
Hmm.
So there's that fight too, so that they can turn them into apartments or they can be landlords.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
definitely
So
see that.
yeah, so we'll see. I mean, part of it is how this ties into this is you're still listening to Real Estate Talk with Heather and Ross on WAYO 104.3 FM Rochester. The I don't know how this ties into the national economy too with COVID. I don't know what the next year is gonna look like anywhere. So I don't know what's going to happen in Rochester. I don't know what's going to happen in the country. I don't know like what businesses are going to come back, what businesses are never going to come back, what businesses are
I
going to like
know.
grow and thrive in, because some of the competition has gone. I don't know. I don't know what anything's going to look
Yeah,
like. I don't know what jobs are going to look like. We'll see.
right. Yeah, it definitely is unknown. We don't have to discuss this today, but I do have, along those lines, a thing about returning to the office and how now, for people who have offices to return to, there's a lot of discussion about okay, people are getting vaccinated. How do we return to the office? How will return to office, for example, revitalize downtown areas that maybe were suddenly just shuttered due to COVID?
Was it that different? I mean,
Not here, but in other cities,
in other places,
apparently.
yeah, you're right. True, true.
No, not in Rochester. I mean, I would think the places that people already went. Wait, did you tell me the subway was gone
The
downtown?
subway's gone, so that is a definite impact.
I mean, that's a
That the
sign
subway's
when the
gone,
subway
but
closes.
also, I mean, this was like not
I'm
that
not
long
talking about
after.
the train subway for anybody
No,
who's
right.
listening. I know we're still on Rochester chat. I think we've moved out of our real estate sub discussion.
Hmm.
I don't mean the subway. I understand we haven't had a subway for a long time. I'm talking the sandwich shop.
Yes, yeah, which I was surprised about, but it was like the only thing left down there, and like all of the businesses that, including one that we are both familiar with because we
Right.
used to work in that
In that
area,
building.
like all of those businesses and buildings have been empty for what, 5 years. So I don't know what was sustaining the subway anyway. um
Right.
Maybe just because it was the only thing there, I don't know, but
Yeah, well,
uh
there's the bank next door.
oh, that's true. That's
I
true, so
just
you get the,
assumed the people from the bank were keeping the subway going.
yeah, that must have been it. Maybe the subway employees were buying subway sandwiches on their breaks and that was enough, I don't know.
Yeah, but no, I'm not really talking about our downtown. Though I did go to that place Mercantile on Main finally.
What's that?
Speaking of downtown businesses, it's that new food court type thing on Main Street in the old Sibley building.
Oh, okay, I don't know about that.
Yeah, it recently opened. I kept reading about it. Everybody was saying it was great.
Oh,
It
but
was a
that the
lot of fun.
but the old place that was there was oh, I forget the name of it. So that's a one for one. I don't know if that counts as a as a growth, if that's your
What
example,
was in
because
the old Sibley building?
there was a place that closed down over COVID, during COVID, that was in there before, because I'd gone there a few
Huh.
times.
I
But
never knew
anyway,
about that. But there's more than one place in this Mercantile on Main.
okay.
Because there's like an Indian place, a sandwich thing, a pho shop, a coffee shop, maybe some other stuff. So now it's like 6 different businesses in
All right.
one.
I'm supportive.
But in other cities, return to office could mean that people will start returning to downtown areas
Yeah.
and actually going to downtown restaurants. Again, I don't mean in Rochester, New York, but this was an article from NPR, so it was more about across the nation.
Hmm.
And that's such an interesting discussion because I know a lot of people who don't want to return to office, even people who at the beginning of COVID had a very difficult time reconciling working from home. They didn't think they could do it, they didn't want to, they didn't like it at first. They've come to realize, oh, all the things that were real stumbling blocks for me, I'm over them now.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the flexibility. I appreciate being on my own time. A lot of it's really just the flexibility.
Well,
Because
and
I know,
a lot of businesses, I think, aren't necessarily wanting to deal with people back in the offices either, you know?
right. I don't know how it I don't know how it can be done all that safely yet.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, where, as we've talked about, over the past few weeks, we're definitely in a big hurry for a thing that's still definitely ongoing. But I
Oh,
mean,
absolutely. And in the article, people were quoted as like, we need to do this as quickly as possible. We need to get this in place. And I know, again, I don't have an office to return to. I work from home and I love it.
mm,
I really do. Um, but I was sitting there thinking, why? Why do we have to get this in place as quickly as possible? The work is getting done.
Well, and I've seen so many things, and there are still so many outdated attitudes um, from a lot of business leaders. People who, in theory, are supposed to be smart. Although, I think I think most of us know that getting paid or having a good title doesn't necessarily mean you're the smartest person there. Um, doesn't mean you're not, but doesn't necessarily mean you are. Um, you know, I was seeing, I forget what I was reading the other day, but people were talking about, oh, well, if I don't know what people are doing and they could be slacking off and blah, blah, blah. And, I mean, there are certain roles where, yeah, the job product is a little more ephemeral. Um, maybe you're a manager or something like that. But in general, what I'm always, you know, I guess my thing in life is always like, well, let's boil this down. Like, what what do you need done? What
Right.
what is the product that you need the person to do? What is the thing
Mm-hmm.
you need the person to do, or the product you need them to create? And if they're doing it,
Right.
then why should you care? And the idea that, we've had this part of this is we've had this idea with work where, like, I own your time for this amount of time that you're working for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and to me, a much more reasonable way to look at it is, you know, not I own you, but I own, I'm paying you to make something, to produce something, to give me something, to create something that
Mm-hmm.
I can use. Um, if you do that, and maybe
Yes.
and maybe Tina gets more money because she makes a little more of it than you do. There are levels, but there are levels of performance and all that. But ultimately, it's like, there's this terror that, like, oh, Heather could have gone, Heather could have walked down and put in laundry.
Right.
Like, it's this, and it's control. It feels very controlling, and
Yep.
I think people don't realize how creepy they sound when they're like, oh, well, yes, Heather did all the stuff she was supposed to do and she did it really well. But what if she's, how do I know she's not, spending an hour pooping?
Yeah.
Like,
Though you can do that in the office as well, and they can't stop you.
true.
Um, but more to your point, the doing laundry, the going out for a quick appointment. I don't talk too much about work on this show, but one thing I like is that people are trying very hard to move away from that strange micromanaging because I know I've internalized it from past jobs.
Yeah.
And so even I will be struck with the urge to either think about my coworkers' hours, like, oh, well, weren't they supposed to be on now?
Mm-hmm.
And so I have that in my head and I tell myself, like, none of your business. Did they do what you needed them to do?
Yep.
If they do what I needed them to do, I do not care when they did it or how long it took them.
Yeah.
If they got the thing to me with everything I need, job is done.
Yeah.
Took them 5 minutes, took them an hour, they did it at midnight, they did it at noon. I don't care. As long as I got it by when I needed it. But I will see my colleagues, just very carefully sending out emails to the whole group like, I'm going to take an early lunch today. Don't worry, I'll check back in and make up my time later. And the honest truth is, on a level that they're human beings and I'm excited that they're going to go have lunch and I want them to have something good, I
Right.
care about that. I don't care. I
Yeah.
don't care. Go. I hope things are great. I hope your appointment's great. I hope picking up your car is great. I hope your kid feels better. Do not tell me if you're not working your regular hours because I don't know what your regular hours are,
Right.
nor do I care unless I need to cover you during your regular hours. Like, this does not
Right.
affect me.
If you're, if you're doing what you're supposed, if you're doing what you're supposed, if you're producing what you're supposed to produce and you're available when you need to be available, um, yeah, I can't even, it seems just poor management to lose sight of that as in exchange for, well, I'm really worried that Heather took an early lunch. I don't know that
I
she took an early
know.
lunch. I have no proof of that, but I suspect it.
Yep.
Or whatever. It's
Oh,
and
yeah.
again, it's control. It's very
It really is.
you know I like the idea of, you're pay. I've had, I've had even my most recent job, um, which I don't have currently. So well, not my most recent job then. So my previous job, um, I mean, we would have, it was one of those, like, there's like a ton of stuff to do. Oh my God, you're there like half the night and blah, blah, blah. And then there
Yes.
were times where there was like absolutely nothing. And because of the way things were, it
Yep.
wasn't like it wasn't even like you could make up stuff to do. It was just like, there is nothing
Right.
to do. I mean, so we would sit there, and me in like a, little, more of a management role, I'll just say. Um, so we were carefully counseled, like, you have to look busy. You can't leave or go anywhere or do anything. You need to pretend to look busy, even though there's absolutely nothing to do.
Uh,
But you have to set a good example by looking busy. Um, and as a
wow.
manager, I didn't care if the people had, like, and you know, as a manager, like, if I was in charge for the evening, if I was like the manager for, whatever time period or whatever, and I was the one in charge. Um, if people didn't have anything to do, I did not care what people. I had no, like, I mean, but there were people who'd be like, okay, you need to find something to do. It's like, it's my job as a manager to find something for you to do. And if I don't have anything for you to do, or can't find any and don't know of anything for you to do, then I'm certainly not going to yell at you for not doing anything.
Yep.
Play on your phone. I mean, that's not your
Yeah.
fault, you know? Um, and if it were up to me, I'd be like, you can go home if you want. I don't care. you know,
Right.
but then you don't get
Well,
paid
and
because you are there for a certain amount of time, whether you're doing anything or not. It's so weird. It's so funny. I don't know. I don't get it.
well, and that is the flexibility of working from home because I think a lot of jobs have that kind of ebb and flow of I am so busy, I don't think I've gotten up in 4 hours and now my hips have locked.
Right.
And then you have the other days where, or at least it's the case in my job, I know exactly where my work is, but other people are working on their parts of it, so I can't touch it until they give it back to me.
Right.
So then I just keep refreshing my screen going like, "Yep, I'll have that soon. Yep, soon." And so with working from home, then maybe you can go and do another thing because you know that the next day is gonna be the day where you sat for 4 hours without moving,
Right.
and then you came back and sat for another 4, and then you sat for another 4 because everything came back.
Well, and I don't want to pat myself on the back, like, I'm pretty good at getting things done. Like, if I'm in a job, like, I'm pretty like, I just want to get it done. I'm fast. I can usually figure things out pretty quick. I usually, like, I'm a little quicker sometimes than maybe some other people at getting things done. And it always really annoyed me that, and again, I'm not saying like I'm so great. I just, I like to, if I've got something to do, I like to do it and get it done and be done with it.
Yes.
Um,
Yep.
and it would sort of bother me that, like, it would always sort of bother me, that, so I would do the thing and it's done and no one has any complaints about it and it's fine. So now I have to sit and pretend like I'm doing something because I already did the thing I was supposed to do,
Right.
as opposed to like screwing around or taking my time with it, dragging it out so that I fill time. I don't
Oh,
know. It's
yeah.
so the whole, so
Uh,
I, you know,
it is strange, and it does seem like it said something in that article from NPR about how only 3% of jobs require that the people be in a place.
yeah,
'Cause I definitely get there are some jobs that most definitely you need to be in the place, you need to be on a schedule
yeah,
because you're dealing with clients in person, you're taking appointments, you work in a restaurant, something like
right.
that. But with an awful lot of stuff, especially with so much corporate being global now, people are working around the clock in different parts of the world, and as long as you communicate somehow at some point, the work goes great.
Yeah,
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 it's very interesting. With the, getting things done quickly and immediately, I do the same as you, but I have to say it's because I have no chill. I
right.
have absolutely no chill. I see the thing come in, and then I'm just like, "Rawr." Like, I can't I cannot unless I'm doing something else, but still, like, I just need to get in there and do it. And on occasion, it really is like, I'll have one of those super long days, I'll be tired, my eyes will be burning, and I have to tear myself away, like, "You've done enough. You don't have to do it all today. You can save some for tomorrow.
Or you do it
So,
today and then you do nothing tomorrow and it's super fun.
well, I mean, there's that. Yeah, I mean, it would help if every once so often I had like just a little ounce of chill, but
Hmm.
I'm not known for that.
No, you're definitely not. I don't know. It's
No,
very
not at
interesting.
all.
And I don't I mean, from the way the conversations are going though, I know there are definitely companies that are like, hey, you know what? Maybe we don't have to have people back and pay rent for office space and pay all the overhead and stuff. Um, Not as many as I would have thought. And
No.
I'm again, it's this case where, like you, in all sorts of ways, we thought like, at least I thought like, okay, well, COVID is terrible, and this is just one of the worst things that will happen in my lifetime. But there are all sorts of learning opportunities for people in the, our world and the way we live and experiencing other people and our relationships and our homes and our families and finding balance between our work and our home life and reconnecting with our families and loving people and learning how to communicate better as a community and society and really coming to appreciate each other. And it's like, no, nothing. It's like it already, I mean, COVID's not even in the rearview mirror at all. And we're just already, everybody's like, nope, this year never happened. I am going to do things exactly how it,
Yes.
no matter how much I hated it then, I'm going to keep doing it. I don't want to, like, it's like people don't even want to. It's like people are mad about the idea that they would have learned anything from the past year. Like, no, I will not give COVID the satisfaction of having learned any lessons whatsoever. I don't know, because the
I
conversations,
know.
I don't hear. I hear a lot of people like, I cannot wait until work is back exactly like it was before, and it's like, well, you didn't like that, and you thought it was stupid.
No, I know. I've seen a lot of discussion about a lot of employers adopting a more hybrid work schedule
Hmm.
and giving people a lot more flexibility to work from home and maybe only report to the office for important meetings where they had to show up in person and things like that.
Hmm. I've heard
I think
discussions
that's
of
at
that,
least a
but
start. I
yeah, and
do. The big thing that gets me is the idea that if you could have all of your workers pay for their own electricity, their
yeah.
own plumbing, their own internet, be their own tech support to an extent, pay for their own office space, their heat, their air conditioning, like if you could offset those costs onto your employees and then you get rid of your building where you pay a lot of rent and you pay all that overhead and maintenance and upkeep and insurance and all that. I can't even imagine how much money that would save a company.
You know what? Yeah, I've thought about that too, but I think it comes down to control. I think
I think it
there,
does. It
there,
must because they'd save so much money.
yeah, I think there's a corporate mindset, that's very well ingrained that if you're one of the fancy people sitting in a big boardroom, you have, you do not have any trust or faith in people if there aren't people like, if there aren't people sitting there staring at them watching them work all day. um and again, I think part of that mindset is keep, I think there's a subconscious or barely conscious just that need to have people under your control, to have people under your thumb. And you see it with the capriciousness of layoffs and all that stuff. It's like, ha ha ha, I can, I can buy you, I can sell you, I can get rid of you when I want to, I control your time, I control when you go to the bathroom. um you know um I think that's what it comes down to, and I think I don't think there's been a change in that, which is why I don't have a lot of confidence. I'm sorry to say that these flexible arrangements are going to take hold on that big a scale. I think there'll be
Yeah.
some of it, and that'll be better. But
Yeah, I'm sure you're right. I'm sure you're right.
I
Do you
felt better about it.
remember we worked a job together a long, long time ago,
A couple of them.
and
Yeah.
we had a manager who was definitely that kind of controlling every minute of your time.
Yep.
And I remember there was one day we had a very bad snowstorm,
Hmm.
and I left for work quite early, but I was still late because traffic was just horrible and driving was awful. And I go to clock in because we had to clock in at this job. And he turns to me and he says, "Oh, only 6 minutes late." And in my boldness, I believe I turned to him and said, like, well, you could have said you were glad I got here safely. It's terrible out there. And then he did look a little bit chagrined. But I was thinking, like, what mindset is it that you get in when, your employees have literally risked their lives
Hmm.
on terrible roads to get to their job, and you don't even say anything to the human being about their awful commute, and you're just like, "Oh, you were only 6 minutes late."
I I think that person was probably a good formative experience for both of us, because I think I'll speak for myself, but I think this was probably you too. I think we were both a little cowed by authority at that age. Um, and he was somebody who would like push you so far
Yeah.
that you'd kind of have to be like, you know what, you're being a jerk right now, and I'm not going to take it.
Yeah. You
um,
know
and then you would watch him
yeah.
kind of back down, and you'd be like, huh. I guess you need to stand up to people like that. At least that's that. I think it was a good experience for me because I
You
had a couple of
could
things like
be
that where he pushed
right.
me like too far, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to let you speak to me that way. And he backed down, and I was like, oh, I guess you're supposed to stand up for yourself once in a while.
That is an interesting point. I definitely remember when he would push me too far,
Hmm.
and I would have to say something. Never rude,
No.
never impolite in any way. Oh boy, I can't remember. Ah, I wish I could remember. I had one really good that was it. He was so upset about something, and he was just going on and on and on about it, and I was having a long day. And I looked at him, I said his name, and I was like, "Hey, you, I'm having a long day too." And he just like pretty much ran. He just
Hmm.
ran away.
Yeah, he was definitely one of those people, and I have encountered that personality type over and over and over again. And it's a very specific personality type, but it's very common. Where the moment you express that you are not going to take what they're trying to dish out to you, in even like a tiny way, and even just being like that, like I'm having a long day too, or just
Yeah.
by not being, sometimes just by not backing down or not being afraid,
Yeah, not like
they will fold
crying or
immediately.
quaking.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah,
and I've
that was
encountered that multiple
interesting.
times where, because I'll put up with a lot, but then I do snap. Like I do have a temper, and I can keep it under control, but like it gets to a point where like I have to say something right now. I cannot listen to this anymore. And then I stop and I try to think of a polite way to formulate the I want to kick you in the face right now thing that I really want to say. um and then yeah, so many times where I'm like, "Oh man, I should have just I should have just stood up to you a long time ago."
Yeah, yeah, it is interesting because you don't even need to be rude or mean or loud or anything.
No, it
But yeah,
really
I'm
is.
glad I
Yeah,
remembered that one.
that is my life advice, because that is definitely a personality type where there is somebody who will push you and push you and push you and push you and push you, but the moment you express that you are not going to be pushed any further, they will back down. That's not everybody. Some people will just keep pushing even harder. So I don't know what to do about
Mhm.
that. I haven't figured that one out yet. But those people you just probably want to keep out of your life as much as possible. But
Yeah. Gosh, I
um,
am so lucky that I can't think of anybody I currently interact with often who has that personality type these days.
yeah.
Oh, it's
Um,
definitely weird having someone like that as boss, though.
yeah. Like I said, I think it was probably good in a way for like one of my first jobs, because it did
Yeah.
it did teach me like, oh, okay, sometimes it's okay to stand up for yourself, and sometimes you absolutely need to. Um, we got a couple minutes left. I don't have time for this. We don't have time for the any of the bigger things we were going to do. Do you want to do a couple of hot picks? Because I knew you had a
Oh, I
couple.
do.
All
I
right.
do. I've got one.
Do you want to do yours?
I do want to do mine.
Do
So
it.
I got the most exciting news yesterday in the form of a screen cap of a tweet from one of my favorite comedians, Paul F. Tompkins, that finally, like 6 years later, his comedy special, Crying and Driving, is now available for people to watch.
Oh, was it not available to watch?
Yeah, it was not available. And I remember years ago when it was being taped, I was so excited because he's just a favorite of mine, like to the
Mhm.
point that back in the day I would buy the DVD and I would sit and I would laugh and I would watch. I would so much fun, just like such a delight. I
Yeah.
think he's so funny, you know? So I was very, very excited to get this. And I remember like I kept Googling it. I'm like, where is it? I, I want to buy it. I want to buy it. And I couldn't buy it. And then finally he started putting out some stuff about like, this is just delayed. I guess there is like production red tape and who was going to
Yeah.
put it out and all this stuff. And so it finally got to the point where I was like, well, I guess I'm probably just like never going to see that special. And so then I saw the tweet and I immediately went, these days I just bought myself a digital copy because as everybody knows, you know, I watch TV these days, but I haven't watched it yet. I'm so excited to watch it. So that's my super duper hot pick because
Oh, good for
it's
you.
going to bring me like,
I hope it's good and you
you'll,
don't have to rescind your hot pick because that's unheard of. We don't have a theme for that. So I hope
um,
it's not
Paul
bad.
F. Tompkins, I don't know. I think Paul F. Tompkins could like talk in his sleep and I'd still be like, I love him so much.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm a big fan. So whatever he does, I'm sure I'm going to love it.
my hot pick, or one of my hot picks, is, and then I have one for you, maybe, is An Unkindness of Ghosts, which Heather got me for my birthday, which I meant to read like 3 years ago, but I didn't, and now I'm reading it, and it's real good. It's a
It was good.
yeah, it's a yeah, it's a, I don't know how to describe it without giving too much away, but it's basically a spaceship that's arranged sort of like the antebellum South, which sounds like a heavy metaphor, but we're in the era of like the Underground Railroad book and show and all that stuff. So, metaphors are, old South, antebellum South times metaphors, heavy metaphors are in now. So it is really good. I haven't gotten very far because I've been very sleepy lately. So I'm only like a third of the way through, but it is excellent. And Heather, I wanted to share one with you real quick because I got a couple. But we talked I've talked a couple times about how like I've noticed that in pop culture with like the superheroes or the spy things, like you're getting things with women, and then you're getting things with
Hmm.
people of color, but you're not really getting a lot of things with women of color.
Oh,
So I don't know. So this is a CW show that Mike and I started watching just on a whim, and then we got really addicted. And I think you would like it. It's Kung Fu. It's
oh, I
called
want to
Kung Fu.
watch that.
I think you would love it. It is very like
Oh,
CWYA.
yeah. It
In
looks so up my alley.
you know what? It's very satisfying and entertaining and fun. And it's got a largely Asian cast, as you would hope. Although
Mhm.
the show that it's based on did not, so that's so that's not a given, but it does, and it has some queer characters and all that. So but it's very fun, and it's very like YA light, entertaining, but also fun, dramatic, and blah blah blah. So
Yep,
I
I've seen the ads and the promos for it, and it's on my list. I just need to get through the circle, and I need to get through Drag Race España,
okay,
which just started. I just watched episode 1 yesterday, and the second half of season 5 of Lucifer just dropped.
okay.
I
So you
know,
got
so
well,
TV
your
time
your
is
your
great.
July's all booked up.
I know, but Kung Fu is on my list.
Yeah. Yeah, Equalizer on CBS surprisingly is and the Paramount Plus is another one that's you know because I watch anything with Queen Latifah. So and again,
Oh, yeah.
it's sort of a superhero show in the same way. Um and I only started watching it because I'm obsessed with Queen Latifah, but it's that same sort of thing. I mean, it's sort of in the style of those CBS cop shows, except that Queen Latifah's character is there's a it surprisingly for like a old white people demographic CBS, it definitely goes there with some of the issues, and it's a week to week. It's not like the most um I don't know what I'm trying to say with that. It's a story a week kind of thing, but it's very satisfying, and there's a whole like Mike and I both get these moments every episode where like Queen Latifah is going to come to help somebody. Like, cause that's what she does in the show. And you're just like, I want Queen Latifah to come help me because it's somebody who's like
Oh,
in a lot of trouble and their things aren't going well and they were like and the police are after them and they did a thing and they're and somebody's coming after somebody and there's a thing and then Queen Latifah's like, well, I'm gonna get that's how she talks. Obviously, I'm gonna get him is what she says, and that's her catchphrase. And then she doesn't. You're just like, yeah, you want to clap. So it's that kind of thing. And
yeah.
Kung Fu's a similar vibe. Although Equalizer's not quite as young YA, so I don't know if you'd like it quite as much. But
I do like my YA stuff.
and I just realized we're out of time. So um, Queen Latifah's going to get you, is what she says. So that's remember that for next week. But Music Matters is coming up next. Heather, I've been Ross, and that's been Heather, and
Hello.
it's been a show.
It's been a show.
See you next week.
So, wait. You had a Pride of Lions, but no otters or bears this Pride Month. You're slipping.
Well, I mean, if I were going to get bears or otters this month, of course, I wouldn't get just one.
Of course not. You'd round yourself up a sleuth of bears, which is, of course, the collective noun for a group of bears, both the furry kind that live in the woods and the other furry kind that only occasionally live in the woods.
Or I might get myself a romp of otters. Romp being, of course, the collective noun for a group of furry otters.
I think this has been our most educational Pride episode yet.
I wonder what you would call a group of lesbians.
I call that a party.
Oh, it's true. Not because, we're exoticizing lesbians. Just fun. Invite some lesbians over. It's Pride Month. You can do it. It's good. It's a good time.